Hello and welcome. Tonight, Lagos Police Command vows zero tolerance of violence as protests hit parts of the city over naira scarcity. Governor Sanwo-Olu calls for calm, says matter is being addressed. 5 persons arrested by police in Rivers State following similar protests in the state capital, Port Harcourt. Victims count losses in Delta State. Governor Nyesom Wike again condemns the implementation of the naira redesign policy of the CBN, maintains he expects the president to obey the Supreme Court on the matter.
And on business news, the Central Bank of Nigeria debunks rumors, says banks are not authorized to collect the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes.
On Sports Days tonight, World Athletics Council to review Russian athletes' neutrality status in future events.
And from the nation's capital, Labour Party Vice Presidential Candidate Dati Babamit says only his party's presidential ticket reflects the unity of Nigeria, accuses governors giving counter orders on naira swap of treason.
And in international news from London, Volodymyr Zelensky has called for faster help for his country at the Munich Security Conference, as world leaders gather ahead of the first anniversary of Moscow's invasion.
As protests continue today in parts of the country over the naira scarcity in the state of Lagos, while the State Police Command is warning that it will not tolerate violent demonstrations. The warning is coming on the heels of violent protests that occurred in some parts of the state in the early hours of today, spreading to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Addressing journalists after inspecting some affected areas, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ido Owonwa, said that perpetrators of violence would not be allowed to have their way.
It's been barely a week since he resumed in Lagos as Commissioner of Police. And this is the second time he is having to make an on-the-spot assessment at crisis areas. His first was the visit to the Ogijo police station in Ikorodu area of Lagos, a fallout of a clash between policemen and a soldier. And now, following protests that broke out in the Mile 12 area and other parts of Lagos, including Ojota, Ketu and Ikorodu in the early hours of Friday, the police chief is here to see things for himself.
Apparently, an average Nigerian under a democracy has some rights. We respect those rights, but we also appreciate the limits of those rights. If your rights and your concerns are expressed within the ambits of the law, you'll be protected. But what we are witnessing here goes beyond that. It's just an attempt by touts, mostly miscreants, in most of the places, to take advantage of the situation in order to cause, to threaten the security order in Lagos State. We will not tolerate that.
The commissioner is also quick to send a warning to those that may still be contemplating violence in the state.
Anybody, no matter how your status, leanings or whatever, that tries to threaten this order, definitely the police will respond to it forcefully in the interests of the peace-loving people of Lagos State.
Now that relative calm has returned to most parts of the state, residents will be expecting that the police will continue to maintain law and order as the countdown to the general election continues.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has been reacting to the unrest that broke out in some parts of the state. The State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho, explains in a statement that Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu believes there is no need for violence as the Supreme Court is looking into the controversial naira redesign matter and will make its position known on February the 22nd. He maintained that Lagos has since joined the legal dispute, all in the interest of the people, in the belief that the highest court in the land has the capacity to adjudicate on the issue. The Staying in the nation's commercial nerve center, residents continue to face challenges in their financial transactions due to inadequate circulation of the newly redesigned Naira notes. At one of the major markets in the city, the Mile 12 International Market, the chairman, Mr. Shehu Jibril, said he had asked the traders to continue receiving the old Naira notes because there was no other way out. Our correspondent, Kelly Egiga, reports.
As we arrive at the Mile 12 axis here in Lagos, we are greeted by a loud cry for help. Inside the Mile 12 International Market, there are mixed reactions from buyers and sellers.
All the place I'm going to, all the old notes in my hand, they are not collecting it. Like, we are all suffering.
We were collecting money, business is going on. But at us yesterday morning that I spoken, things has gone down totally.
For the chairman of the market, the situation calls for serious concern.
We're doing our normal trading. People are buying in the market, people are selling. But when we took money to the bank, they reject the money. Several banks that we have around this axis are not collecting that money from us. So we decided to say, okay, if we are not collecting money, let us do it this way. Let us pack the money we have, ask some people to go through plane and buy the market from the north, because northerners are still collecting this money. In Kano, in Kaduna, they still collect money. So take a flight, go to the north and buy this. So a day before yesterday, the EFCC also intercepted the money from the market. Even till I'm talking to you now, the money is EFCC. We are trying to explain to them that this money is not money to any politicians. It's a money of traders. The banks are not collecting this money. We are collecting the money, and there's no any way, no means of taking this money to the third party until we either take it ourselves or we ask someone to take it for us.
The chairman also appeals to the federal government to end the chaos, as 70% of trading activities in the market is done with cash.
70% of the activity of this market is in cash, and the new one, we don't have it. So what do? But I've told them, it's better you sell what you want to sell with the old money. Let us see how we can fight it out than losing your market, because when you lose the tomato, it perishes, you have nobody to chase. But with this one, when you have millions of naira and somebody is asking you to put matches on them, then you can fight it out in anywhere. That's the situation we are now in the market.
This footage shows what appears to be the new normal for transporters.
Money where I get with this, so
Go give our central bank.
no, Supreme Court say now on the 22nd for end.
Buhari pass Supreme Court.
Okay, Buhari pass Supreme Court. Bros, help me now. Make them don't start me for work now. No, they don't start me for work now. You don't feel help me.
And while traders and other small business owners have stopped accepting the old Naira notes across the country, Nigerians who are still in possession of the old Naira notes have been left stranded. Kelly Egiga, reporting for Channels Television News.
In Port Harcourt, the River State capital, 5 people have been arrested following the violent protest and disturbance which also rocked the city earlier today. Although the situation was promptly brought under control, the Commissioner of Police in the state, Mr. Okon Effiong, said there were incidents of attacks in various locations across the city.
This is the headquarters of the River State Police Command along Moscow Road in Port Harcourt, and the place is as calm as it should be. However, the situation is different at the premises of the Central Bank of Nigeria, where a crowd of angry residents gather. Their anger stems from the fact that the old bank notes are not being exchanged for the new notes as promised. In another part of the city, where one of the new generation banks is situated, there appears to be some order at the ATM point. The State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Okon Effiong, acknowledges the fact that some people came out with the intent to cause trouble, but his men were able to contain the situation.
We had intelligence, and so we had to beef up our security deployment this morning. And we had a situation where the miscreants went to Central Bank, and they got their men were able to contain them, and they've gone to a couple of other banks, and they mounted about about 11 simultaneous attacks. But because we had deployed effectively before now, it was possible to contain their activities in most of these places.
Meanwhile, Mr. Effiong adds that some persons have been arrested in connection with the incident. He, however, assures residents in the state that the elections will not be affected in any way.
A couple of arrests, about 5 persons have been arrested already. We do not think that it will go beyond today. Once we are able to deal decisively with the situation in this state, as we are doing right now, I can bet you that there will be no disturbance tomorrow. And going forward, we have already, if you go to IDEC now, you discover that we've sent an APC there already. We've sent an APC to the central bank, that armored personnel carrier. So we are on top of the situation. And we do not think, except otherwise, we do not think that what has happened today will affect the conduct of the general elections.
A drive through the popular Ikoku flyover, as well as the education bus stop, shows that calm has indeed been restored. But this building, housing one of the new generation banks at Rumokoro, bears the signs of having been attacked, with broken windows so visible.
Meanwhile, those affected by a similar protest in Udu, Delta State, are still counting their losses following the violence that erupted there when some angry youth went on rampage, destroying property. Now, the youth were protesting the scarcity of the redesigned Naira notes and the rejection of the old notes by people. However, calm has returned to the area, with about 13 suspects arrested by the police command.
This is what the premises of some banks in Udu look like. Residents in Udu, a town near Warri, the commercial hub of Delta State, move with caution after a violent protest by angry youths. Burnt vehicles and automated teller machines, broken glass, vandalized structures and paper litter the streets. There is uneasy calm in the area as the victims of the protest, especially point-of-sales operators, narrate their experiences.
Yesterday morning I resumed. Now only God help me say I quickly come on, jump come on for my POS stand. The boys just come, carry my POS stand, push and fall. They start to use things, they knock them, push and enter the major road. Now they burn and my POS stand the corner of First Bank there. Say now we and the bank, then now they refuse hold money. They go burn now. What the government go fit do?
The Delta State government is not happy about the situation, but calls for calm and maintenance of law and order.
The decision of Mr. President has shown that in less than 3 days from now, this challenge would have eased because the CBN would have ended up reintroducing the withdrawn 200 Naira notes to circulate alongside the other redesigned notes. So please, don't go about destroying banks. Don't go about burning the shops of your fellow Nigerians who are also going through the same pain. These are the things the politicians want you to do and make it impossible for us to have this election.
Meanwhile, the Delta State Police Command is advising the general public to shun violence and be patient with the government.
Security situation generally across the state is calm. Our men have been deployed in conjunction with other security agencies, working tirelessly to ensure that that madness stops. It's not an affair for Delta State alone. It's a national problem. It's affecting all of us. We as police officers, we are also affected. But it's our duty to ensure that we maintain and ensure that there is peace.
About 13 persons have been arrested by the police on charges of arson, with a stern warning to those who may want to cause more trouble to desist or risk prosecution.
In part two, after the break, bank customers besiege Central Bank office in Lagos Island to deposit old Naira notes. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Lagos Police Command vows zero tolerance of violence as protests hit parts of the city over naira scarcity. Governor Sanwo-Olu, however, calls for calm. 5 persons arrested by police in Rivers State following similar protests in the state capital, Port Harcourt, even as victims count losses in Delta State. Governor Wike again condemns the implementation of the naira redesign policy of the CBN, maintains he expects the president to obey the Supreme Court over the matter. And President Zelensky calls for faster help for his country as world leaders gather in Munich ahead of the first anniversary of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Bank customers today besieged the Lagos branch of the CBN on Customs Street in a bid to return volumes of the 500 and 1,000 naira denominations in their possession. Some had money in popular bags looking to submit their old 500 and 1,000 naira notes at the CBN office in line with its new policy. However, reports say only people with codes generated after filling a form provided from a link to the portal on the CBN's website to enable Nigerians to deposit their old notes were being attended to. According to the CBN, part of the condition for redeeming the currency is that depositors can only access the window once, while beneficiary accounts would only receive value after the successful processing of cash deposited and verification of documents submitted. Meanwhile, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has again condemned the position of the president on the implementation of the naira redesign policy following protests in parts of the state capital, Port Harcourt, today. Governor Wike, who was speaking at the state PDP rally in Andoni local government area, says he expected President Buhari to obey the Supreme Court on the implementation of the policy. He told the people of Andoni to join the PDP in the state to reject candidates in the forthcoming elections that are supporting the enforcement of the monetary policy.
I'm not in support of the suffering of the masses. I'm not in support with so-called naira redesign. I am not in support of that. I believe a country that respects the rule of law, the president ought to respect the Supreme Court. And when you don't respect Supreme Court, then it's anarchy you are talking about. Yes, so we, from Rivers State, we condemn the position of our president of not respecting the decision of the Supreme Court. We want democracy. There cannot be democracy without respect for rule of law. And therefore, any candidate who is in support where the masses are suffering, we will not support that candidate. At all. Will you go and support candidates? No. He should suffer like this? No. You see, I believe, live and let leave. Any policy you are doing, you have to wait. Because you are put there for the masses, for the people. If your policy is going to suffer the people, then you think twice. And that is my position. And that's what I believe in. And so Yibu must make a statement that day.
Over now to the nation's capital, and Terry Ikumi is on hand to give us the very latest from Abuja. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Ayo. We continue with the naira redesign matter. And the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Yakubu Mekiao, is asking President Buhari to obey the order of the Supreme Court. The Apex Court had directed that the old 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes remain a legal tender, pending the hearing and determination of the main suit by some governors. He adds that the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, was also wrong to make a contrary order on the ban of the notes, different from the subsisting order of the Supreme Court.
What became so unclear was the fact that in the statement of the president, with due respect to him, after acknowledging the fact that this matter is in court, proceeded to do what I would term as an attempt to tinker with the terms of the judgment of the Supreme Court. That is not right. That is not right. And it is not right because whenever a matter is subject to the jurisdiction of the court, by virtue of what the Constitution has provided, has empowered the courts to do, to listen to disputes between the federal government and the state government, between individuals and state government, between individuals themselves. Whenever there is a dispute, it is for the court to determine. I expected that whoever was involved would tarry a while, and that includes the president. That is because the president himself is a creation of the Constitution, the office of the president. So also the courts are the creation of the Constitution. What the president can do and cannot do are all prescribed in the Constitution. What the courts can do or cannot do are all prescribed by the Constitution.
To politics now. The vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Datti Babamit, says the Labour Party presidential ticket is the only one that reflects equity, fairness, justice and unity for Nigeria. According to him, 8 years ago it was the turn of the North and a Northern Muslim was elected. Therefore, it is the turn of a Southern Christian, an arrangement he says was put in place since inception to ensure that no section or religion in the country becomes marginalized. He also carpeted the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, for countering the president's directive on the new Naira notes, describing his action as treasonable.
Going in 1999, then Fourth Republic, there was election all the same. Northerners were there, Muslims were there, handed over to then Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, Southern Christian. Continue reading the DNA of Nigeria. Fast forward 2007, in the Eagle Square, drama happened. Some Peter was about to beat some Umaru, and NEPA did what it did, and handed over to Northern Muslim Umaru Yar'Adua. God Almighty recalled him. Northerners, Muslims stood for the swearing in, handing over of Christian Southern Goodluck Jonathan, who asked for 2011 and was given. 2015, PDP for what it was, reneged and tried to do bully its way and all that. Christian Southern leaders, including in the North, some in broad daylight, destroyed their party cards for justice to be done. And a Muhammadu Buhari, Northern Muslim, was elected. Now 8 years later, this DNA of Nigeria, the fourth DNA of Nigeria, it regulates, that is political justice. That DNA regulates our body temperature. Their states have become so insecure. The train from Kaduna to Abuja was attacked. International headlines. They have not challenged Buhari on that. They have not challenged Buhari on when the Naira fell from 200 to the dollar to 750 now or more. They have not challenged him. It is only the money, the drama to elections that they are challenging the president to the extent of giving counter orders to the tune of, treason. It's close to treason. Lawyers will tell you that better.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, the Central Bank of Nigeria debunks rumors, says banks are not authorized to collect the old 500 and 1,000 Naira notes. That's on Business News. To join us again. Welcome Welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. We're staying with the presidential election. The presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, Mr. Dumebi Kachiku, says INEC has greatly damaged his chances of participating in the poll, as he has not been able to nominate party agents to man polling stations across the country. Mr. Kachiku told journalists in Abuja that despite the court ruling by Justice Murtala Nyako that the tenure of Mr. Ralph Nwosu has expired, INEC continues to relate with him as chairman of the party.
As you are all aware, Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court gave a ruling on the 20th of December last year, affirming the end of the tenure of the Ralph Nwosu-led NWC and nullifying all actions taken by the illegal body from the end of August 2022 till the date of the ruling. This ordinarily should have put an end to the crisis in the African Democratic Congress, but an obviously biased INEC failed to obey this ruling and continued their unholy alliance with Ralph Nwosu. I and other candidates of my party were unable to present any agents to represent us in the forthcoming elections, as INEC released the agent codes to the Nwosu faction of the party. I have no agents who will represent me in the next elections. After achieving their nefarious objectives, in the last week, the same INEC has now written to Senator Mrs. Patricia Kwashiki, the BOT chairman of our party, affirming and accepting that there exists a leadership vacuum within the party since the tenure of Ralph Nwosu had since lapsed, and asking for arbitration between the factions in the party. This is very disingenuous of INEC because they only chose to do this after the deadline for agent submission had elapsed.
Meanwhile, a northern group known as the Arewa New Agenda has thrown its weight in support of Senator Bola Tinubu and Kashim Shettima for the forthcoming presidential election. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the convener of the group, Ahmad Abubakar, listed human capital, educational and infrastructural development as some of the areas that will receive due attention if they are elected to office following their track record at the state level.
Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu took on the gory side of Lagos environment on assumption of office that was occasioned by pollution from different sectors at that time. One, he set up the 40-year development plan, which has been followed diligently over the years, culminating in the ongoing transformation of Lagos. He set up the mechanism for revenue generation that has moved Lagos from a 600 million naira economy to over 50 billion and counting. He engineered the inner city metro line project that is currently moving commuters within the metropolis. He frontally set up to combat the situation by creating the Ministry of Physical Planning to combat flooding and coordinate waste management disposal.
And that's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Ayo.
Many thanks, Terry. The governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, has taken his campaign for re-election to Okeogun axis of the state, where he says his administration has spent up to 40 billion naira on the construction and reconstruction of different roads that link Okeogun to other zones of the state. Addressing party faithful in Iwajoa, Kajola and Itesiwaju local government areas, he asked that his administration will expand the frontiers of governance in the state if he is given another opportunity to be governor for another 4 years. He also met with the League of Imams and Alfaz, and the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria and non-indigents in all places he visited.
The 2023 governorship election may be coming up in March 2023, but the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, is not leaving anything to chance as he takes his campaign to Okeogun zone. In Iwajowa, Itesiwaju and Kajola local government areas of the state, the reception for Governor Makinde and his team is encouraging. As he goes from one community to another, he encourages the people there to vote for him a second time to consolidate on all the gains of his first term.
We're not just stopping at agribusiness this time around. We are also adding solid minerals development and tourism. And the suspended lake at Arewa, you have only 2 of such in this entire world. One in Colorado in the USA and this one here. So what we're saying is we will attract a world class tourist resort into Arewa.
For some members of the People's Democratic Party in Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde is the best option for the state, based on his performance and reception accorded him by the residents of various communities he's visited.
It's not just what we are saying, it's what the governor has been enabled by God and by discipline, by focus to perform.
See how people are coming out. See what he has done. See what he's still doing and what he will do in this 2023. I doubt it. Even if they go to heaven to vote, he will win.
Religious leaders are not left out of Governor Makinde's campaign schedule as he makes out time to visit them at their various places of worship, where he reels out his achievements and a promise of what he intends to do if given another chance.
To the oil sector, where the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says it is targeting 1.8 million barrels per day of oil production in the next 2 to 3 months. The Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, stated this at the final cut-over ceremony of the company in Abuja. He adds that the nation's production is not at 1.6 million barrels per day, explaining that there is hope to hit the recovery level stated in this year's budget.
Thank you very much.
After 40 years, this is the final day of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation as a government entity. This is enabled by the Petroleum Industry Act, which birthed the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, a private entity.
To comply with the safety procedures.
The leadership of the new company and workers are witnessing this final move, which is expected to make the Nigerian oil and gas industry attractive to both local and foreign investors.
Thank you very much. Let us keep in mind the real purpose of this transformation. It is not to stifle the private sector in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. It is to encourage growth, attract investment, and maximize the dividend to the investors.
The new company, which was set up in 2021, is carrying some of the baggages of the old company, which include high production costs, low revenue because of subsidy payments, moribund assets like the refineries, and oil thefts, among others. Whereas the company has commenced the rehabilitation of all the refineries, the government wants to end the payment of fuel subsidies by June of 2023. Nevertheless, the new company has assets worth $60 billion and plans to increase crude oil production in the next few months.
Today, as of yesterday, we have crossed 1.6 million barrels per day. This is not rocket science. And we have a line of sight to recovery to the level of the budget level of 1.8. It's very close by. I don't want to give this, but I know that it's not far. We're probably 2-3 months max. But we will be there. And that will bring back partners to invest, return confidence of our investors, our lending partners, and ultimately that growth that we all know it is practical will come back.
Council, Mr. Chidi Moma.
The company is planning to raise more investments when it's listed on the Nigerian Exchange, which is expected to happen by June of 2023.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. The corporation.
Will Ibong joins us now for the very latest in business news.
Thanks, Ayo. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has reacted to the news published by various media outlets stating that the bank had ordered deposit money banks to collect the old 500 and 1,000 naira notes from the public. In a statement signed by the CBN's Director of Corporate Communications, Mr. Osita Nwansobi, the CBN has described the news as fake, adding that banks have not been authorized to do this. The CBN says it has been directed to only reissue and recirculate the old 200 Naira banknotes, and this is expected to circulate as a legal tender until April the 10th, in line with President Muhammadu Buhari's broadcast on Thursday, February the 16th. Now, outside Nigeria, Ghana has told private foreign creditors they may have to accept less favorable terms than bilateral lenders in the country's $30 billion debt restructuring. This comes as the country faces the risk of defaulting on one of its Eurobonds. According to Ghana's Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, a speedy process with bilateral creditors is needed to pave way for discussions with private creditors. Ghana's softer approach to bilateral lenders is a setback for Eurobond investors who have been asking for equal treatment with other lender groups. However, the country appears to be racing against time in a bid to unlock a $3 billion IMF loan by March. Now, in the energy markets, the price of European natural gas has fallen to its lowest level in almost 18 months as EU countries cut demand, helped by a mild winter. The European benchmark contract for March gas delivery dropped 5% earlier today to a low of €48.90 per megawatt hour, the lowest since the end of August 2021. In late August last year, the price surged over €300 per megawatt hour when Russia intensified the squeeze on Europe by turning off the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline for maintenance. Now, the equities market took a dive in today's trading session. Apparently, market giant Airtel Africa couldn't stop sneezing. Laddie Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, yesterday I did say that hope the bears don't pull a surprise on the last trading day of the week, but yes, we have a big surprise. Let's look at the all-share index. Big move down, 1.31%, losing that 54K level for the all-share index. Market cap, 29.310 trillion naira. Let's look at the activity chart. We see it's all green with sell pressure in the market today. 172 million units of stocks, valued at 3.76 billion naira. Deals back above that 3K level, 3,077. Let's look at the top gainers counter. And again, Triple G, that's in the packaging and printing sector there. Again, topping the gainers counter. This has rallied about 59% in 1 month. Was trading at 80 kobo in early January. Quite a run there. Incredible run, Triple G. Almost 2 naira. Wapik, 45 kobo there, up 9.76%. Let's look at the losers counter now. And it's the big gun, Airtel Africa there, most capitalized stock on the NGX, losing about 100 naira there, taking the market down over 1%, and 4 out of the Fugas also adding to the losses we saw today in the market. And as expected, there's a negative market breadth. 13 stocks added gains compared to 18 decliners. And that's how your money performed today. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
And that's it on Business News. It's back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Will. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has called on allies to expect a long war in Ukraine as his country prepares to deploy its first Leopard tanks to Kiev. He made this known at the annual Munich Security Conference. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Volodymyr Zelensky has called for faster help for his country at the Munich Security Conference as world leaders gather ahead of the first anniversary of Moscow's invasion.
We need to hurry up. We need the speed of our agreements, speed of our delivery to strengthen our speed of decisions to limit Russian potential.
Allies with available battle tanks should send them to Ukraine now, he said in a speech. Zelensky said it was obvious that Ukraine would not be the last stop of President Vladimir Putin's invasion. Those attending included US Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as well as China's top diplomat Wang Yi and NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg. A spy at Berlin's British embassy who sold secrets to Russia and was caught in an undercover MI5 sting has been jailed for 13 years. A judge found that David Smith tried to damage Britain's interests by passing on details of the embassy and its staff for cash payments. Investigators set up a covert camera in his security cabin at the embassy, which showed him taking photos of classified documents. Sentencing him, Mr. Justice Wall said Smith had put people at maximum risk.
You started to collect information from the British Embassy to which you were not entitled. You continued to do this until your arrest in 2021. You did it by stealth, using the opportunities provided to you by your employment to visit various offices in the embassy at night when others had gone home and take photographs of classified documents on your telephone or camera.
New Zealand's Prime Minister says he expects there to be more deaths from a violent storm which has killed at least 8 people and cut off hundreds of communities. More than 4,500 people have yet to be contacted after Cyclone Gabrielle hit on Monday, causing significant flooding and landslides across the North Island. Many cities and towns are also without power or clean drinking water. New Zealand's Prime Minister described it as the biggest natural disaster that they've seen in a century.
We're going to be dealing with the effects of this cyclone for quite some time. We now know that 8 people have lost their lives as a result of the cyclone, and our emergency services continue to hold grave fears for others. Police report that there are 4,549 persons reported as uncontactable.
France's state-controlled power company EDF has posted record losses for the last financial year of 17.9 billion euros. A price cap on energy for French consumers hit the company profits hard, but so did the enforced closure of many of its nuclear power stations for repairs. The losses are the 3rd biggest in French corporate history and the worst for more than 20 years. EDF's debts have spiralled to 64.5 billion euros. South Africa is holding a joint military exercise with Russia and China that opposition figures say amounts to an endorsement of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The US has also criticised the 10-day naval drills, which will continue over the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine. But South Africa's government says it remains neutral regarding the conflict and that it routinely hosts similar drills with other countries, including France and the US. 7 major German airports have been brought to a standstill after hundreds of ground crew walked out on strike over pay. Aircraft are grounded at Frankfurt, Munich, Stuttgart, Bremen, Hamburg, Hanover and Dortmund. More than 2,300 flights have been cancelled, affecting 300,000 passengers, with air travel effectively wiped out. And after 2 years of coronavirus-related restrictions, the debutant pairs finally had a chance to waltz around the Vienna State Opera during the 65th Annual Opera Ball. The glamorous gala, featuring opera and ballet performances, helps raise funds for Austrians in need through the initiative. The ball traditionally started with the entry of the Young Ladies and Young Gentlemen's Committee, which had rehearsed for months to get prepared for the event. The first ball, known as the Opera Ball, was held in 1935. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The Nigeria Olympic Committee has promised massive support for the Curling Federation after the athletes became the first from Africa to qualify for next year's Youth Winter Olympics in Gyeongwon, South Korea. With 16 countries competing in the mixed team and 24 in the mixed doubles competition, the NOC says the Curling Federation will get the necessary funding for its preparations for the Youth Winter Olympics. Now, the World Athletics will look at the issue of Russian athletes competing while the Russian war continues, only after it has been decided whether the country has cleaned up on its doping sufficiently to be reinstated. World Athletics President Mr. Sebastian Coe said the Governing Council will meet next month to decide whether Russia has made sufficient progress along what he calls a roadmap to warrant reinstatement after it was banned in 2015. Australia will be spending $4.9 billion on venues for the 2032 Brisbane Olympics, including a new 17,000-seater arena and a revamp of Gabba Stadium. The Queensland capital was awarded the 2032 Summer Olympics and Paralympics 2 years ago, returning the game to Australia for a third time after Melbourne in 1956 and then Sydney in 2000. Basketball great Michael Jordan will make a record-breaking $10 million donation to Make-A-Wish Foundation to mark his 60th birthday. Jordan's donation to the foundation, which aims to fulfill the wishes of children battling critical illnesses, is the largest in Arizona-based non-profit 53-year-old history. Renault-owned Alpine have unveiled French football great Zinedine Zidane as a surprise signing in London's Docklands. The 1998 FIFA World Cup winner and former Real Madrid coach was introduced at the launch of the new A523 car as a global ambassador for the brand and to also help promote equal opportunities. French driver Pierre Gasly, another new signing as a teammate to establish compatriot Esteban Ocon, races with the number 10 and struggled to contain his excitement at having Zidane as an ambassador.
It's difficult even to stay at the top four, but our aim really, like I mentioned before, is to develop at a higher rate than anybody else because we've got to catch them. So we've got to catch the top three and hopefully leave the others behind. And to do that, especially in an era of only small regulation change, it's difficult. However, that's what we set our goals to. We have to develop at a higher rate, and if we can do that, we will catch them.
And that's it on Sports News. I'm Jeffrey Ozong is back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. The Lagos Police Command today vowed zero tolerance of violence as protests rocked parts of the city over naira scarcity. The Lagos Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu called for calm and said the matter is being addressed. And that's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. On behalf of all of us here, is good night and stay safe.